Hello friends, and welcome back to 5 Agendas. And as promised, you get to meet the last of our pets for the birds. These are the parents of the two baby lorikeets that you saw earlier. Here they are. This is Honey and Laura. They got their little nest box. That's where the babies were laid and hatched. And the one on top, that's Laura. She's the female. And the one here by the entrance, going up top just now, is Honey. He's the male. So there you have it. Hope you can see him okay. There you go. Okay, now we're ready for part 19 for 5 Agendas, Man and Linen's Parabolic Time Clock in Matthew 20. The 6 a.m., early in the morning, Exodus. Third hour, first immutable, 31 AD. The first agenda. I know I'm drilling this in. Between the hours of 9 and 12, we have what took place from 554 to the 1800s, the 1290, transgression and abomination. Okay, as well as the second agenda. The concurrent call at 12 and 3 equals the 1800s. The 6th hour, 12 and 3, the 9th hour. Right there. Then came the third agenda at the 3 p.m. 9th hour, and the fourth agenda at the 11th hour, 5 p.m., Luke 21:24. The times or probation for the nations or Gentiles closed. 1967, 1980. And now as we move on from the 5 p.m. to the 6 p.m., we have the fifth agenda, which is individual cleansing, individual cleansing in relation to the mark of the beast. Okay? So, it is stated in Leviticus 16, 18 to 20, that after the high priest cleansed the 3 divisions of the sanctuary, starting with the most holy place, then out to the holy, first apartment, and then out to the courtyard, the altar in that courtyard. The most holy place, see the tabernacle of the congregation. He would then go out to cleanse the altar in the court on behalf of the individual, not corporate, by mingling the blood of the bull with the blood of the goat, the Lord's goat, which was chosen to die for the Lord. Okay? The high priest would then place the blood on the horns of the altar in the court, and the symbolism represented the fact that at the end of time, Jesus, our great high priest, would cleanse his house from all their forgiven sins in that fifth agenda, which is called the antitypical fulfillment of the ancient Israeli feast, the sixth feast in the fall, a metaphor for the end of the ages of Israel, the Day of Atonements or Final Atonement. Again, we see that the cleansing of the altar in the court that takes place during the fifth agenda is in relation to the heavenly places as stated in Hebrews 9:23. And we will be reading that shortly. A necessary cleansing. So here, remember, we've shown this before, we have the everlasting gospel revealed in Leviticus 4, where we have the priest that is anointed, the whole congregation, so these first two, parts 1 and 2, were for corporate, then the ruler, which was individual, and the common person. Okay? And during that daily ministration, for the high priest, or for the whole congregation, these first top two, see how the priest would take the blood in, sprinkle it before the veil, and place on the horns of the altar of incense, and then just pour it at the base in both instances. So what God was saying, he's saying, look, when I deal with the corporate, it's ministered here. When I deal with the individual, it's ministered here. So that when the antitypical ministration comes along, you'll know that based on the three angels' messages and the prophecies, you'll know what the man in linen, our great high priest, what ministration he is doing. It's not so much about what, because this earthly tabernacle was just, it was a figure. The heavenly is the real. So it's not that, where he is. The emphasis is on what ministration he is performing in the heavenly sanctuary. Okay? Because remember, Hebrews 8:5 is the key. The service was the example and shadow, not the literal, physical tent or furniture. There was symbolism throughout, but it was the service that was the example and shadow of heavenly things. So when I deal with something here, it's corporate. When I deal with individual, the ministration is ministered here. Okay? And on the Day of Atonement, the high priest went in first with, see the red dots, is for the blood of the bullock, and sprinkled here and here on the mercy seat and before the mercy seat, and then placed on the horns of altar of incense. And then when he went in the second time was with the blood of the Lord's goat, okay, sprinkled there and placed there. Third time, the green is the mingling of both those bloods. See, he went in the first time, went in the second time, and when he came out, he mingled those two bloods that he sprinkled there, the bullock and the Lord's goat, he mingled them there, okay? Placed on the mercy seat and before the mercy seat, sprinkled and put on the horns of the altar of incense. That was the first agenda here in the most holy place on that last screen, in the most holy place with the ark. This is the second agenda, corporate, because corporate confession, the record of that confession and repentance was registered here during the daily. So on the yearly, the corporate cleansing took place here. And here, the blood of the Lord, the blood of the bullock and the Lord's goat was mingled to place on the horns and sprinkled on here. Okay? And that was the fifth agenda. Leviticus 16:20, because remember, when you add them all up together, it's 5 agendas. The first in Leviticus 4, individual forgiveness. Second agenda, corporate confession and forgiveness, repentance. And then the third agenda was the most holy place. Fourth agenda, the first apartment or holy place. Fifth agenda, at the altar, burnt offering, the court. But remember, in Leviticus 16, there's those 3 agendas, which is the most holy, the holy, and the altar, and the court. Add them up, you have 5 agendas. See, it says here in Leviticus 16:20, and when he hath made an end of reconciling the holy place, that's your most holy place, and the tabernacle of the congregation, that's your holy place as we know it in the first apartment, and the altar, okay, in the court, the altar burnt offering, he shall bring the live goat. Now, this corresponds with what Hebrews 9:23 is saying. And what Paul is telling us here is, it was therefore necessary that the patterns, so those things on earth, it was necessary for those things to be cleansed, because they were the patterns of things in the heavens. So it's necessary that the patterns of things in the heavens should be purified or cleansed with these, the blood of bulls and goats. But the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices than these. Okay? So therefore, it is necessary, since it was necessary for these, it's necessary for the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices, plural, because in the type there was the blood of the bullock and the Lord's goat. And those plural sacrifices, remember, corresponds with the sacrifice that the Father and the Son gave. They both sacrificed. Because remember, John 3:16, God so loved the world that he gave. That's a sacrifice. And the Son yielded up his life once for all. The sacrifice was once for all, and that's a sacrifice. So 2 sacrifices, okay? Better sacrifices, and they are better because these things, blood of bulls and goats, they couldn't purify or cleanse or make the comers thereunto perfect, as Paul said in Hebrews. But the better sacrifices can not only cleanse the heavenly things during that third agenda of the reconciling of the heavenly in 1844 at the end of the 2300, but it can also cleanse us. Okay, and there's more about this cleansing, and we're lining it up with the parabolic time chart. So we're not going to go into too much detail about this cleansing. That'll be for, other presentations and videos that will be going in more in depth. And, we've studied it in recent years, this necessary cleansing, final atonement, but we're learning a lot more about it. And, you know, um, we have to unlearn some things, and that's what we're finding out now. So it's going to be really eye-opening. It's going to be, some really eye-opening things. The third angel's message of Revelation 14:9 is the final atonement equivalent of the cleansing of the altar in the court of Leviticus 16:20, which is the last part of the verse, the altar. The third angel's message in the book of Revelation is also a warning against the false worship of the beast and its image, its mark, and its number, as well as its name. This warning is in Revelation 14:9, which says, "And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand." Now notice this mark is going to be received in the forehead or in the hand. And what we're going to be talking about more, like we've mentioned it in the thought paper, is, okay, remember the Shema? I remember how it had to do with the forehead and the hand. The true Shema reveals a oneness in duality. The false Shema reveals a one God, monotheistic. Okay? So just think about that for a minute. The true, from God's viewpoint. Now, to every truth there's a counterfeit. The enemy counterfeits. He's he even counterfeited the man in linen with the man that walks around with the pointy hat and the white garment. You know who I'm talking about. Okay? So here's this mark in his forehead or in his hand. Okay, so remember that point because we're going to be talking about it. And if you're reading the thought papers right along with these, because that's exactly what they are, thought papers, okay, to stimulate our thinking and study, okay, and review. This marks the end of this antitypical Day of Atonement, since these three angels' messages also move in concert with the agendas of the Day of Atonement in Leviticus 16. What does that mean? The three angels' messages move in concert with the agendas of the Day of Atonement. So remember, the agendas of the Day of Atonement. There was a ministration in the Most Holy, then the Holy, and then the altar in the court. So that corresponds with the three angels' messages? When I first learned and understand, there was like, oh wow. Then you can when you study and go over these things, you're like, yep, that goes with that. This lines up. Piece of puzzle over here forms a huge picture. Okay. All right. So think of it this way. The ministration of the Most Holy, think of that as the first angel's message. Fear God and give glory to him. Okay, 1844. When you think of the ministration in the tabernacle of the congregation, that holy place, that first apartment, where corporate was. Think of second angel's message, Babylon has fallen. Think of Luke 21:24, close of corporate probation for, Babylon, Laodicea, corporate bodies, churches. Okay. The fifth agenda, ministration at the altar of burnt offering, cleansing, that was for the individual. Think of third angel's message. Okay. In the third angel's message, here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Okay. So that's how the three angels' messages move in concert with the agendas of the Day of Atonement, Leviticus 16, which is a movement from the law to the corporate and then to the individual. And I'll illustrate this shortly coming up. So once the third angel's message is given, we then witness the second coming of Christ in Revelation 14:14 as one like the Son of Man, seated on a cloud with a golden crown and coming back with a sickle to reap the harvest of the earth, which are his saints. Revelation 15:8 presents the same Day of Atonement imagery, okay, by stating in the text that while the 7 last plagues were falling on the earth, no one could enter the temple in heaven until the plagues were finished. The same language is used in Leviticus 16:16. This is clearly alluding to the fact that once Jesus' mediation as high priest has terminated, there will be no more intercessor on behalf of man, and God's wrath will be poured out on the disobedient. So here we have the first angel's message, the hour of his judgment. This is 1844, the third agenda. Otherwise, in Leviticus 16, notice the first agenda, the second agenda here, third agenda here, but here's your third. And this is Daniel 8:14's cleansing of the sanctuary. Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed after the 2300 days or years. And this is Leviticus 16's first agenda, see, on the Day of Atonement. Okay? Then comes the second angel's message. Babylon is fallen. This is your 1967 to 80, that brief period of time mentioned by Jesus in Luke 21:24 that Luke recorded as a brief period of time by using the akrihu, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. There's your fourth agenda, corporate cleansing, because this is where the registration of corporate forgiveness and confession was registered, so therefore the cleansing took place here. And this is Leviticus 16's second agenda on the Day of Atonement. Then came the third angel's message, and that is the if any man worship the beast in his image. So this is where the warning is. This is where we are now, and this is why this warning is important for us to understand now. And receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. So the time frame is now, and that's your fifth agenda, individual cleansing. Leviticus 16's third agenda on the Day of Atonement. So with Leviticus 4, we have individual and corporate forgiveness, and then here's your third, fourth, fifth. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. That lines up with this. The first, second, third angel's message. Okay, the agendas, the prophetic prophecy, Luke 21, Daniel 8:14, the entire book of Hebrews, and why the book of Hebrews is important for us to know and understand today. Okay, and what we'll be getting into is the importance of what Revelation 13:8, the Lamb slain from before the foundation of the world, why it's going to be important for us to understand that right here in this time frame. Okay, so this is the 6 p.m. even was come. So the first agenda, the second agenda for here, the third agenda, the fourth agenda, and the fifth agenda on the Mandolin's parabolic time clock. He gave us this time clock. He gave us this parable, and it is a huge Bible help and aid to line up all these different aspects into one complete picture. The 6 p.m. is the end of the working day. Eventime arrives when no man can work. Okay? So in summary, during the working day, which began, sorry for that interruption. I don't know if the microphone is picking up, but Ruby, the Crimson Roselle, is down here, and she's talking, so you might be able to hear. But so during the working day, which began at 6 a.m., God provided the basic illustration for the unfolding of the message of the everlasting gospel. There's your sanctuary service, your sanctuary message at 6 a.m. in relation to the sanctuary tabernacle by way of Moses, who was instructed by God to build the sanctuary tabernacle, which would reveal the architecture of the everlasting gospel. The service was an example and shadow of heavenly things. 3 hours later on the parabolic time clock, Jesus died on the cross, thus fulfilling the first agenda of individual forgiveness, which was illustrated by the altar of burnt offering in the court, with connection to the first 4 feasts in the spring. See? Early in the morning, 6 a.m., Passover, Exodus, earthly tabernacle set up, revealing the everlasting gospel. 9 a.m., the third hour, the cross, represented by the ministration here for forgiveness for the individual at the altar of burnt offering in the court, fulfilling the Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, and Pentecost. Calvary's cross, the first agenda, at 9 a.m. After Jesus ascended to heaven between the hours of 9 and 12 p.m., he began his high priestly ministration in relation to the second agenda of the sanctuary, which was corporate forgiveness. Now here's your messages to the churches in Revelation, as revealed in Leviticus 4, 1-13, 18, and antitypically fulfilled in Revelation 1, 2, and 3, where Jesus tells 5 of those 7 churches that they had to repent. The Ephesian church was told that if she didn't repent, remember, her candlestick would be removed, and Laodicea was clearly told that she was about to be spewed out. I will. He did. And that's what took place between the hours of 9 and 12. High priestly ministration, second agenda, corporate forgiveness. Now don't forget, the transgression and abomination took place between here. The first application of the apotelesmatic, 1260, 1290, and 1335, from 554 to the 1800s here. Okay? And what we're going to be going into more is that 1260, 1290, and 1335 in that apotelesmatic is going to be fulfilled again in the future. And it doesn't look that far off. Then we explained that between the hours of 9 and 12, a counterfeit attack upon the truth of God took place. This attack is known as the transgression of desolation in Daniel 8, 10 and 11, 12 and 13, and similarly as the abomination of desolation in Daniel 12. Okay? 9 to 12, transgression of desolation, Daniel 8, abomination of desolation, Daniel 12. Same thing. Later, and if you want to review this, the thought paper, and we did a video, the Hatamid, or as you might say it, Hatamid. It's a video that comes before this one in the lineup. You'll see it. Hatamid, Hatamid, okay? And there's the thought paper that goes along with it. That explains more of this, the apotelesmatic 1260, 1290, and 1335. So later at 12 p.m., God provided the Millerites with the chronology, which would form the architectural foundation for the third agenda of the sanctuary, which was the antitypical Day of Atonements, Leviticus 16, at 3 p.m. which would work in conjunction with the perfect sacrifice of Calvary, because it's those better sacrifices, and the Son gave His blood, and He uses that blood. On account of the fact that on the Day of Atonement the blood of the bull and goat were for the sole purpose of cleansing the household of God. Jesus' sacrifice not only forgave individual sin in the first agenda, but also cleanses sin during the time frame of the third, fourth, and fifth agendas, by way of His final mediation as High Priest of the order of Melchizedek. The third agenda of the sanctuary is the antitypical Day of Atonement of Leviticus 16, whose equivalent in the New Testament is the first angel's message of Revelation 14:6-7. Fear God and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment has come. 1844. Okay. We had the concurrent calls at 12 and 3 and 5, at the 6th hour, the 9th hour. So this is how it all lines up, remember? So we have Leviticus 4, which is the first and second agenda, or 31 AD, and what took place between 31 AD and the 1800s. And then we have the third agenda, 1844, January 14, the fourth agenda, 1967 and 1980, Luke 21:24, corporate cleansing, fifth agenda, where we are now, individual cleansing, the third angel's message. And that's how the first, second, and third angel's message, fear God, Babylon is fallen, that's corporate language, and the third agenda, the mingling of the blood, which was for the cleansing of not just but their transgressions, but also their uncleanness of the children of Israel in the type. Okay. The fourth agenda of the sanctuary is corporate cleansing and is found in Leviticus 16:20, which is the cleansing of the tabernacle of the congregation, so that first apartment or holy place. And its equivalent fulfillment is found in the second angel's message, Babylon is fallen. Okay, Revelation 14:8. The fifth agenda of the sanctuary is individual cleansing, which is found in Leviticus 16:18 and Ezekiel 9. Ezekiel 9. So when you hear Ezekiel 9, you automatically think men in linen, marks a mark, sealing, okay, of those sighing, crying for the abominations done, okay, in the midst thereof, okay, individual, but crying for the abominations in the corporate, okay. But the man in linen marks a mark. And its equivalent New Testament antitypical application is found in Revelation 14:9, which is your third angel's message. Okay, there's the warning against the false worship of the beast, you know, and his mark, his name, and you know, number. Here's the patient. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Here they are. How? By the ministration that was accomplished and that will take place. Okay, it is in process right now regarding the individual cleansing and what that cleansing means. There's more to it, and that's coming up. Okay. So Daniel 8:14, the Day of Atonement equals reconciliation of the heavens, third agenda. The hour of the judgment of Him in the Greek. And then the corporate cleansing, the fourth agenda. Luke 21:24, 1967 to 1980. Babylon is fallen, from Revelation 14:8. Then you have the individual cleansing, fifth agenda. That's Hebrews 9:23 and 26. Okay? Revelation 14:9-12. If any man worship the beast, here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus, right there. Okay? So look how each apartment, each ministration has a first, second, and lines up with the third, all three of the angels' messages. Just as darkness descended upon planet Earth during the time frame of the mark of the beast, God's people will have the seal of his approval by experiencing the final cleansing on behalf of the individual by way of their high priest, Yeshua, Jesus Christ. At the end of the working day, God removes the iniquity of his people by way of his righteousness. And we're going to talk more about his eternal righteousness, the imputed righteousness, by faith without works. Zechariah 3:9, and I will remove the iniquity of that land in one day. So there's huge things coming up. So, subscribe that way and click the notifications icon thing, the little bell, so you can be notified when new videos are up. But I will remove the iniquity of the land in one day. In Matthew 28, we see that the laborers are paid at 6 p.m. evening time. So when even was come, the Lord of the vineyard said unto his steward, call the laborers, and give them their hire, beginning from the last unto the first. So beginning at the 5 p.m., the 3 p.m., then the 12, and the 9, and the 6. God will then pour out the 7 last plagues on the wicked, and the saints will experience the protection of God as revealed in Psalms 91 after 6 p.m. And there's a huge amount of information that we're going to be sharing that takes place, before, during, and after this time. And it is going to be, and I'm still trying to grasp and understand it. And so that's why we're going to take it slow and carefully, and use whatever aids and helps that we can, because and this is the reason for these videos in the thought paper, to understand and get these things down in our brains. It's not acceptable to just go over something, surface reading once and, think you have it and move on, or treat these things, with a casual, attitude. It's time to get serious. Matthew 25:10. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Okay? We need to have that oil in our vessels with our lamps now. Isaiah 26:20. Come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself, as it were for a little moment, until the indignation be past. Not too far distant ahead of us, we're going to be reminded of this text, of what's coming. Okay, so please see part 20, which I believe as of right now will be the last part of this series on the parabolic time clock. And now that these will be presented and will be done, it doesn't mean that the subject is closed or that we won't be reviewing, but this will give you a foundation to remember, oh, yep, the agendas and the sanctuary service and how it all lines up and how the three angels' messages lines up and where the dates go and what took place between this time and how it corresponds on the parabolic time clock. So hope this helps. God bless. Take care. See you next time. Hopefully soon. Bye.